Right, so whilst Rishi Sunak has presided over the country for 100 days today, not to mention enough sleaze to fill a bathtub, he himself might not be so innocent. Maybe that's why he's so weak to act against others. How much dirt do they have on him, perhaps? Well, one issue has gained a lot of prominence, and it's not thanks to any of our media who are running scared of commenting on it currently, but someone running with it, and that person is Carol Vorderman. It should be pointed out, though, that many of these questions have been asked in the media before now. Just didn't gain in much traction, but with Carol Vorderman spearheading it now, it very much is. And rightly so. Sunak's got some questions to answer relating to his involvement with Moderna, the COVID vaccine pharmaceutical company, and whether he profited from purchasing their vaccines for use in the UK upon news of their successful trials breaking. All of our recent booster shots that we've had have tended to be either Pfizer or Moderna, of course, the AstraZeneca one many of us initially had, slowly being replaced by Moderna as the pandemic progressed and the booster rollout began. Moderna itself is a US biotech pharmaceutical company. For years, it's done research into new medicines, new vaccines using RNA and mRNA technology, a brand new style of vaccine completely using molecules to trigger immune responses at a genetic level, instead of the old style traditional vaccine of injecting an inert sample of a disease to do the same thing. Right, let's look at where Rishi Sunak comes into this picture, though, because Sunak, as we know, was a green card holder in the US until rather recently, as in was Chancellor of the Exchequer recently, and had lived and studied in the US for several years before that. He went to Stanford University, that's where he met his wife, but he also helped set up a hedge fund called Theleme Partners with a Frenchman called Patrick de Gorsay in 2009, which has its offices here in the UK, but is registered in the Cayman Islands, of course, because taxes for the little guys, right, Rishi? Fast forward to 2013, and Moderna were looking to commercialize their mRNA vaccine technology, but had by this time already secured some early investment. And one of the early investors from the year before, 2012, was Theleme. So Theleme had invested in Moderna in 2012, held shares in Moderna from 2012, and these were valued in 2020 at being worth some $500 million, some 20% of Theleme's business interests at that point. The pandemic meant Moderna's stock certainly rose to estimates of investment of double that since. Now, Rishi Sunak left the US in 2013, the following year that Theleme invested in Moderna, in order to pursue a political career back here in the UK. More the pity. The same year his Theleme business partner, incidentally, de Gorsay, got done by HMRC to the tune of £8 million of unpaid taxes, part of his UK hedge fund business dealings. What is it with Sunak and tax avoidance? He tried one of those celebrity film company tax avoidance type schemes that several celebrities tried out once upon a time, and it didn't work out for him any more than it worked out for some of them, despite fighting it, and he was ordered to cough up back in 2017. Anyway, back to the point at hand. Sunak might have left Theleme in 2013, but did he still retain any financial interest there? With hedge funds, particularly with partners as Sunak was, your own money tends to be tied up in these things too. You have investment of your own in the management company, the hedge fund itself. But did Sunak ever extract himself from Theleme completely? Unfortunately, being registered in the Cayman Islands means financial records do not need to be made public, hence the big hoo-ha when a load of them got leaked as the Paradise Papers a few years ago, you might remember. But there is one indication that he might not have done, and that he still has financial ties to Theleme and therefore to Moderna as well, potentially. In 2019, entry of the Minister's Register of Financial Interests, which do have to be made public here, Sunak revealed he was the beneficiary of a blind trust. These are difficult financial structures to set up. They aren't done on a whim. You do them for a reason, and they are inherently shady because the beneficiary can claim to have no knowledge whatsoever as to what exactly they are benefiting from. Functionally, it means that Sunak could claim there is no conflict of interest because he has no knowledge of the specific assets maintained in the trust, and therefore he has no control over them. Now, of course, if this trust does relate to any financial connection to Theleme and therefore Moderna, he's probably got a legal scapegoat, even though it'd go down like cold sick with the public. It'd still be damaging. If it is related to Theleme, when 80% of their asset management has nothing to do with Moderna, Sunak could argue he cannot knowingly be benefiting from Moderna's success in this way. And this is, of course, important because Moderna have won government contracts here to supply COVID vaccines. Now, all we know for sure is that Sunak was a beneficiary of a blind trust. We don't know if it actually has anything to do with Theleme or Moderna at all. When questioned about this, though, Sunak has always refused to answer. Now, he ought to know if he still has shares in Theleme still, even if the blind trust if relevant, hides him from any knowledge of benefiting from Moderna's success through that, and the business it has done with the UK government. As dodgy as this blind trust excuse might be, it would protect Sunak from having done anything illegal, such as the insider trading he's been accused of potentially being guilty of by Carol Vorderman. But as much as he'd have the law on side, he wouldn't have public opinion. But his refusal to directly answer these questions means they aren't going away either. And given all the sleaze he's presided over, his weakness to act on others over their conduct, answer questions themselves, their tax affairs, means people are going to assume the worst of him regardless. And with Moderna set to pull that big pharma stunt of hiking its prices to disgusting levels, having made profits of some £12 billion in 2021, it's going to become increasingly immoral for him to not come clean. This is especially important with news circulating that Moderna may have even more involvement with our health service going forwards. For example, a new £1 billion vaccine centre. There might be one more twist to the tale, though, courtesy of Carol Vorderman, who has stated that Sunak brought in a Theleme partner called John Sheridan as a pandemic advisor to the government. Sheridan's role, according to the only source I've been able to lay my hands on over this, which I'm sorry to say is the Murdoch Times, was as an advisor on the coronavirus loans scheme, Sheridan being a financial analyst. But this is a verifiable connection between Sunak and Theleme at a point after Sunak left the hedge fund and entered government. And knowing Theleme's connection to Moderna, the money it was making from Moderna's success, this is, to my mind, an extremely difficult story for Sunak to explain away. This aspect of it specifically. He clearly still has connections of some sort to Theleme. And the longer he stays silent on them, the more damage it's going to keep doing to him.